Hey, happy Monday. Tonight, I am going to page through and review The Show Must Go On, the first chapter in the Pathfinder Extinction Curse adventure path from Paizo Inc. So, is it worth taking a trip to the big top? Or if you buy this, are you just going to feel like a clown? Well, you'll find out in just a few moments. So, come on in, pull up a chair. The Daily Dope is in the air. Howdy, gang. Yes, I'm Jeff McAleer, back once again as your host here at The Daily Dope, presented by thegaminggang.com, which I happen to be the Grand Poobah. So tonight is Monday, February 24th, 2020. This is episode 446 of The Daily Dope. As I mentioned in the open, we are going to be taking a look at The Show Must Go On, which is kind of how I felt after the screw up to begin tonight's show. The show must go on. Anyway, this is the first chapter of the Extinction Curse adventure path from Paizo Inc. for the second edition of Pathfinder. So we're going to get into that in just a couple of moments. I do apologize for getting started a bit late tonight. For some reason, I always test stuff out before I get started with the show. And for the past, I don't know, week and a half, every time I check the audio right before I'm about to start streaming, it's all chopped up and it's... So that means I have to turn everything off, start everything back up. So, and of course I check to see how the sync is as I'm doing stuff earlier before the stream starts, and everything's fine. But that last one that I check, for some reason, for about the past 6 shows, it's messed up. So then I end up starting the show a little bit late. Weird. Very, very weird. So, I know we had the Madman over in chat when I first started doing this. So I am going to check something here, because I know sometimes when I have to stop and restart the stream, chat isn't set up correctly. Yeah, it looks like it might not be. Yeah, that's probably not. Anyway, well, c'est la vie. All right, let's get the show going, because there we go. Palermo Robles is popping in. Hey, what's up? New sub. Well, welcome aboard. Thanks for joining us tonight as we're going to take a look at The Show Must Go On. As I like to point out, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. And of course, subscribe to the channel. If you do, don't forget, ring that little bell, because it will not only notify you of when the Daily Dope goes live, it'll also tell you when I upload standalone videos as well. This upcoming weekend, I'll be covering C2E2 in Chicago. Might have some videos from that'll be popping up. Anyway, also, when you're not watching videos here on the YouTube channel, by all means, please go visit thegaminggang.com for the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. By now, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Because this is a live stream, chat is available, although it's maybe going to be a little weird. There we go. The Madman's popping in. Good deal. So at least we know the Madman has joined us here in chat. I thought maybe because I had to restart the show, things in chat may have been messed up, but it looks okay so far. Good deal. Anyway, as I was going to say, so I am going to jump into my page through and review in just a moment. Do want to let you know what's coming up this week on The Daily Dope. Tomorrow I will be sharing a how to play and review of Sanctum, which is from Czech Games Edition. Then on Wednesday's show, fingers crossed, because Every time I try to review this, something happens. I get dragged off to go babysit my niece and stuff. It's like, I don't know. But as long as the stars align, on Wednesday's show, I will review Ancient Civilizations of the Inner Sea, which is from GMT. Thursday, we're going to do a little more Pathfinder. This time, we're going to take a first look at the Gods and Magic supplement, which is for 2nd edition, which just recently came out as well. Will not be a review because I'm not going to have time to actually read through this book, but we will do a page through and take a peek at it. I will follow up with a review afterwards. Now, last week I had said that I was going to review Egizia Shifting Sands on Friday without realizing that C2E2 starts on Friday. I will be there covering the show. So there will not be an episode of the Daily Dope this coming Friday because I'll be covering that convention. So hopefully we'll get something interesting there. I don't know. It's a hit or miss show sometimes. I know my brother Greg is a much bigger fan of C2E2 because he goes there for the comic dealers and things like that. I'm not necessarily, Anyway, so Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which do I like more? Hilarmo's asking. Pathfinder 2nd Edition or 5th Edition D&D? Completely, I gotta be honest, they're completely different beasts, in my opinion. 5th edition is more designed towards people who don't want a whole lot of rules crunch, in my opinion. Whereas people gravitate more towards Pathfinder 2nd edition if they want all those feats and customization options as far as their player characters. I know it wasn't long ago when you had like 4th edition D&D and Pathfinder were fairly similar. Now, I really do think they are two completely different beasts. So really, it appeals to various different gamers. I like them both equally. I don't have to back one because it's like I can enjoy 5th edition and what comes out from Wizards of the Coast, just like I can enjoy stuff for Pathfinder and Starfinder, which comes out from Paizo Inc. So I don't the game I run all the time. Game master all the time is Call of Cthulhu. So there's that. And I do on occasion run kind of my own bastardized OSR fantasy role-playing. So without further ado, let's start taking a look here at The Show Must Go On, which, as I mentioned, is the first chapter of the Extinction Curse adventure path from Paizo Inc. The adventure is written by Jason Tondro. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. I know I'm not going to get these correct. The artwork is provided by the following artists who I apologize up front for completely messing up pronunciations. But there's Miguel Rigaudin Harkness, Olivier Bernard, Vladka Hladkova. Like I said, I'm going to get these wrong. I know. What can I tell you? Jason Judah, which that was easy enough. Arthur Nakhodkin, Ian Perks, Darko Stojanovic, and Jesse Surso. I bet you I got like 2 of those names correct and all the rest are just a complete mess. My apologies. Your artwork is fantastic. This 92-page adventure is available now. It released last month. It does carry an MSRP of $24.99 in softcover. You can get the PDF from Paizo Inc. for $17.99. So let's take a look at chat real quick before I jump on in. You're very welcome, Palermo. Just wanted to share my thoughts with you. If you're up in the air about which one to buy, this is my recommendation. Let me go back. So what happens when it's a live show, folks? I know after the people watching after the fact are going to be like, so when's it going to start looking at this? What's going on? It's a live stream. I answer questions, and then we jump on into different news and stuff like that. Although no tabletop gaming news this week. If you are up in the air about which system to buy, I would wholly recommend that you go to, if you're here in the U.S. or Canada or Mexico, I believe, go to Amazon and take a look at the Pathfinder beginner box, as well as either the 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons starter set or Essentials kit. They're interchangeable. They're pretty similar as far as the starter set and Essentials kit, but you will get a nice introduction to both systems. 2nd edition doesn't have a beginner's box yet. I think we're going to see one of those probably in the fall. I am not positive. But you can get them on Amazon for like $15. You get nice sets of dice, you get adventures and things like that. You'll get some pawns. So that would be my recommendation. I know you can get the 5th edition Essentials kit for I think like $14. Just keep an eye on them on sale. And like the Madman points out that he runs a 5e group, and they enjoy it quite a bit. I do like 5th edition. I think they trimmed out a lot of junk that they didn't need. But then again, Pathfinder 2nd edition, I'm not overly familiar with Pathfinder. I'll say that right now. But I will point out that it just seems more streamlined. So, Palermo says they're in San Diego. Cool. Hey, we'll be at Comic-Con this summer, this July. And then the following week is Gen Con. I'm going to be exhausted. So got the 3 main books and the 2 starter sets. Cool deal. Probably got a pretty good deal. So the Madman says that he agrees with me. You know, everybody's got their preference. So, and like the Madman's pointing out in chat, he's a big fan of Savage Worlds. Savage Worlds is a cool system too. But we're not here to talk about all these other systems. Tonight we're here to talk about The Show Must Go On, and this show must go on. As I mentioned, the 92-page adventure is available in softcover, which is what we're taking a look at here, for $24.99, or in PDF for $17.99. So let's swing on over to the other camera here, and we will start taking a peek. So here we go. We got it right here. I do want to point out a few things. Number one, and I kind of just touched on this a second ago, I am not extremely well-versed in all things Pathfinder. I do apologize. It is simply the fact that I don't have enough time in the day to be up on every single role-playing game system that is out there. So I am not familiar with a lot of the history of Pathfinder. I know I've made some comments about some of the artwork in the past, and people are like, "Oh well, the story is blah blah blah," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, I apologize. It's just I don't have time to read everything for Pathfinder, just like I don't have time to read everything that's coming out there for every other role-playing game system out there." But the fine folks over at Paizo Inc. have been kind enough to start sending along different items, different releases for Starfinder and Pathfinder. So I am finally having an opportunity to kind of immerse myself more in the world of Pathfinder and Golarion. And it's very cool. I'm really enjoying it. I love reading RPG books, even if I end up not being a fan of the adventure or the rules, or I think there's, broken parts to it. I still get a kick out of reading all this stuff. So I did want to point out that I am not a Pathfinder expert by any stretch of the imagination. Second thing I want to point out, there's going to be spoilers in this. I'm reviewing the adventure. We're paging through the adventure. There are things I'm going to talk about. I'm not going to cover everything that goes on in this adventure. I am going to touch on some of the highlights, some of the things to keep an eye out for, and some of the things that I like, some of the things I may have thought were a little bit of a head scratcher. So keep that in mind. If you are a player who's hoping that your game master is going to run this, probably wouldn't recommend you watching this video. See ya. Thanks for coming by. Anyway, for the rest of us, let's dive on in. So let's take a look at the back here. And it says, the greatest show on Golarion. When the ringmaster of the Circus of Wayward Wonders is found murdered moments before the troupe's debut, daring circus performers must scramble to arrange a successful show and find the killer. A trail of clues thrusts these heroes into a web of simmering hatred and scheming fiends in a far-reaching plot to eradicate life across the Starstone Isles. The Extinction Curse adventure path kicks off with The Show Must Go On, a complete adventure for 1st to 4th level characters. Also, we'll mention there is a player's guide to the Extinction Curse adventure path. It is available in PDF, absolutely free, from Paizo Inc. If you are watching after the fact, of course, we will have a link to Paizo you can simply click on, which will be down in the show notes. So let's crack this on open. I am going to disappear here, so I will be back in a bit, but you'll still hear me chattering along. But I want to be able to share the book and not have my mug blocking off a corner of the book as well. I am going to page through this at a relatively brisk rate for some pages, simply because I have had people complain in the past that, oh, pirates can actually pause this video and get the whole book for free. And it's kind of like, you don't understand piracy in role-playing games, do you? Because this is not how the pirates get stuff. But regardless, I'm going to kind of leave my hand on pages and things like that, just in case somebody out there was thinking of doing that. So let's jump on in. First of all, I do want to point out, I like the artwork. I enjoy the way that the adventure book has been laid out. There is a specific kind of look to the second edition products now that I noticed. We've got these little items on the side. We've got these little highlights that tells you, okay, so where are you at now? So for an example, this is chapter 1. I can open this up to a random page, and boom, life in the circus. We have right here showing us an advancement track. So this is what is probably going to, what you should see after the end of the first chapter. Characters are going to be hopefully 2nd level. Beginning of the 3rd chapter, they're going to be 3rd level. And by the end of the final chapter, there are 4 chapters in the adventure. They should all be 5th level. Interestingly enough, it seems as if, and I might be wrong here, but like I said, this is actually the first adventure path booklet or book I have ever had an opportunity to actually sit down and read through. So I'm just going to kind of make an assumption here, but it almost feels like, because this is broken up into 4 chapters and we have a new release monthly from Paizo, it's almost as if the adventure chapters are kind of broken up where, so for an example, your first week, let's say your gaming group you play every week. The Madman watching live, great example. He's got his gaming group. They meet, I think, every other week. Sorry if I remember right. But if your gaming group meets up once a week, you should be playing through about a chapter per week. That leaves you in line with the new adventure path releases on a monthly basis. That's kind of how I get an idea that these adventures are kind of set up. So what's going on here is the player characters belong to a traveling circus, a new traveling circus. And the player characters used to belong to this other circus, which was kind of an evil circus, and they were mistreated in that circus. So they and some other circus performers have all banded together to start their own traveling circus. And that traveling circus is making its first debut performance. And that is what you're going to open up with as the player characters. Now, in the background, in this little town, there's kind of like a drought, and just nature has gone kind of wrong for the town and the surrounding area. And the town is called Abertin. I want to say, yeah, it is. I almost said Abersin, but it's Abertin. And you've got nature kind of going wrong. There's droughts, and then there'll be a freeze. So anything that didn't die out from lack of water now freezes. And people are on hard times. So kind of as an idea, you can kind of think about like the Dust Bowl, right? The Dust Bowl in the 1920s and 30s in the United States. Probably this town and the area around it is approaching something that dire. Now there also has to happen to be this hermitage which is nearby, and the town and the hermitage have always had a relatively friendly relationship, but things have started to sour because the hermits, monks, what have you, believe that it's the intrusion of this town that is causing nature to kind of fight back. And the reality is that is not true. Reality is that there's this Aeon tower with an Aeon orb, which actually helps life thrive in this area, and the orb is losing its power. So there's kind of a misunderstanding as far as with these hermits. Well, one of the hermits actually goes to this Aeon tower and learns of this, comes back, tries to convince the other hermits, and they don't believe him. And in the meantime, this cleric arrives at the hermitage, who is really a succubus in disguise, and actually starts pitting the hermitage against the town, as well as bring some demons along for the ride to start corrupting the hermitage. And the player characters find themselves involved in the midst of this. Plus, we also have some troglodytes, which are not called troglodytes anymore, but they are looking to try to exterminate the Aeon Orb because they are looking to exterminate all life from this island chain that the adventure path is going to take place on. So the first chapter will introduce the characters, introduce the circus, and right off the bat, you can see right here, murder in the center ring. Just as the show is about to perform their initial performance, first time ever on the outskirts of this town, they find it's not necessarily their ringmaster, but he's sort of their barker, kind of their leader, murdered. And of course, it's just moments to go before the show is about to start. And cover says right here, the title says, the show must go on. Because the reality is, these circus performers are broke. It's the only way they're going to make any money is if they put on the performances. Okay, so we're kind of getting a background right here telling us what's going on in the storyline. We have little sidebars that I think are pretty cool that tell you a little bit about, here's a little synopsis of the chapter. Here's the treasure you're going to run across, the players can run across. And then we kind of just jump on into the first chapter itself. So what happens is, as I mentioned, the barker, Myron, is murdered moments before the first act is supposed to go on. And then all of a sudden, everything kind of falls apart. People don't want to perform. There's like flying trapeze artists. They find that their nets have been gnawed through. The snake charmer, her big python is sick. There's a magician who thinks that they should be the prime act in the show, and how come they aren't the highlight of the show? And so on and so forth. So there's a few different acts, and it's kind of implied that the player characters, they don't all have to be circus performers, but they are part of the circus. So they could be roustabouts, they could just be concessionaires, things like that. But they're probably going to have acts, at least I would assume. I would think most of the folks out there would want to play characters who are actually part of the circus performers as opposed to just being, I get to hammer in the stakes every show. So the player characters are tasked with having to Make sure that the acts go on as promised. We get some drunks in the audience that are causing trouble. You've got some snakes, some vipers that are loose under the stands, which also happen to be the snakes that bit Myron and led to his demise. So the characters everybody puts on the show. Hopefully, it's a successful show, and then afterwards, now they have a mystery to investigate. So Scooby and the team need to find out who murdered Myron. So they also get to learn more about the circus and the various non-player characters in the circus. There are some encounters. The way that this adventure is kind of broken up is it's more like the way modern adventures are. It's kind of like little vignettes, especially here where it's not necessarily just, it's not a dungeon crawl area here where you're looking at the circus and where the circus has been set up. So we've got various different encounters. The murderer is actually hiding out in the circus in one of the family's wagons. So, and there's a possibility that the player characters will discover who the murderer is. And like many villains, a la James Bond, this villain actually kind of gives up a little bit of the plan, a little bit what's going on. So, like I said, I would think this first chapter, you should be able to play much of this out in a good, say, 6-hour game session. So, like I said, I kind of get the impression that these adventure books are broken up. Chapters should be, I should be able to get through this in a session. So now we move on to the town of Aberton. And this is pretty entertaining because we are introduced to the sideshow of everyday marvels. And the circus is called the Circus of Wandering Wonders. But this sideshow is not like a circus sideshow because circus sideshows were actually pretty awful. But this sideshow isn't. It actually celebrates like regular people. So we've got the bearded man who has a beard. We get the tattooed woman, the unjoined twins, not the conjoined twins, but unjoined twins, and we get Cubby, the dog-faced dog, as well as the professor, who actually is kind of the, I guess we'll say he kind of oversees the sideshow. And these sideshow performers actually go out into the town to help spread the word about the carnival. And they also happen to start spreading the word about the heroics of the player characters. And that's when the mayor shows up, who is kind of this, I don't want to call him a loser, but he's sort of in over his head with what's going on with the environment and the town. He's just used to, dealing with everyday bureaucracy. And so this is something different. And the people of the town think that, well, this is just natural, right? This is just a cycle. That, the streams have all dried up. They're mainly mud. And like I said, we've got the kind of a drought, and then we get like breaks in the weather where all of a sudden it's just shockingly cold. But they think, okay, well, things are going to change. Well, the reality is it's not. It's not going to change because of that Aeon orb. So the mayor finds out about these player characters, the heroes, and figures, well, they did so well finding the murderer at the circus. Maybe they can help him out with some of their problems because people are disappearing from the town. Just very unsettling events going on in the town itself. So the player characters begin their investigation from different areas of the town, and they find out what's gone on with some of the disappearances, as well as this church/bank plays kind of a large role in this chapter, where they're helping out the priest slash banker. I have to laugh. I thought the weirdest thing I've ever run across was the laundromat slash video rental, which really did exist in Chicago years ago, but now church slash bank. I think that's the new one. But probably my favorite part of the town is when representatives of the evil circus that the player characters have escaped from had left to form this new circus show up in town, touting their wares, their show, and there's kind of like dance off, like a circus performance off in the town itself. So I got a kick out of that. And there's three characters. One of them is Jellicoe Bounce Bounce, who's a clown with like Wolverine claws. I see Jorge Rodriguez is in chat. Good to see you, Jorge. So we'll eventually, the player characters eventually learn about the Hermitage, and when they meet up, when they discover the murderer of at the circus, they learn that the Hermitage kind of blames the townspeople for what's going on with the environment, although the townspeople have nothing to do with that. As Jorge says, clowns scare me. Yes, and this is kind of a scary clown too. I had a really good friend a few years back. I haven't talked to him in a while. He hated clowns. I mean, he was terrified of clowns. Which I mean, I don't know. It doesn't bother me one way or another. It's just whatever. So, Chapter 3 takes the player characters to the corrupted Hermitage. This is where they're going to encounter the succubus, as well as these demons who are corrupting the hermits, as well as some animals. So some of these animals have been, I guess they're like demon infused, I guess we'll say, infused animals. So one of the interesting aspects here is that as the player characters as the heroes are going through the Hermitage, they're finding areas that originally had very religious sort of purposes throughout that have just been really really corrupted and devastated in the debauchery that's been going on. So of course these hermits, they believe they're still doing the right thing, but they're not. All right, so moving right along, so we get the various different areas, and this tends to be kind of combat heavy. One aspect of the show must go on that is kind of touted is that the game masters and players can kind of make this as combat heavy or as combat light as they would like. But I don't know. To me, it seems like there's a lot of combat in this adventure. So not that that's a problem. I'm just saying that I don't see where you can. I mean, yeah, I guess you could trim out some of the encounters, but for the most part, there's a good amount of combat going on in the adventure. So it looks like we hit a little bit of a hiccup. I think we're out of that. So you may have seen a little bit of a drop in the frames for a second, but it looks like we're okay. So D12345 has popped in. Said they're sad that the Daily Dope might be going away. Yeah, it might be. We might be wrapping this up next Monday at episode 450. All depends. We just need more eyes on the show. I mean, that's kind of how it operates here. All right. So anyway, moving right along. What's eventually going to happen here is the players will confront the succubus. They will also have an opportunity to save the mayor of the town, because the mayor of the town went to go visit the Hermitage and has not been seen since. And they can also rescue the one hermit who was trying to explain to everybody it's not the town's fault. So once that's happened, that leads us into the final chapter, whereas the players learn of the Zolgoths, yes, the troglodytes, who are actually trying to destroy the Aeon orbs to wipe out all life on this island chain that the player characters, their heroes, are going to kind of traverse throughout the 6 parts of this adventure path. So the characters then go to the tower where they will encounter the various different lizards, and we've got some dinosaurs in here. We've got which were pretty cool. I was like, oh wow, that's pretty sweet. Get to fight some some dinosaurs. This is kind of a dungeon delve, kind of a dungeon crawl in this section here. But they will run across the succubus, and they have an option of capturing her or doing her in or letting her go. But they also find that there is the leader of the Zolgoths who is trying to destroy the Aeon Orb, and the player characters will attempt to stop them. And that will actually pretty much wrap up the adventure once they hopefully are able to stop Kavnakash, the Zolgoth, from destroying the Aeon Orb, and thus will wrap up this first part of the Extinction Curse adventure path. And then we move into Life in the Circus. This is a section basically giving the Game Master a rundown about some rules as well, about putting on performances. You can get as detailed into the circus aspect of this adventure path as you want. There is nothing that says that the Game Master has to dive into this whole bunch of rules regarding putting on performances, advertising performances, degrees of success, anticipation, excitement levels, things along those lines. Sure, that's going to add to the whole circus vibe of the adventure path, but you don't have to necessarily dive on into it. There's even a little side box here talking about simplified rules for the circus. You even have a circus show sheet. And essentially what's going on here is, as this campaign continues, I'm taking a guess that most of the circus activity is kind of like downtime. It's all downtime stuff. So, strangely enough, in the section about the circus, they talk about, well, the player characters should be putting on a circus performance once a week. And it's kind of like, okay, so that's really not how circuses worked. You know, circuses didn't usually just go to one town and then put on a show and then immediately, like, hang around for a week, right? They usually would go to town, put on a performance or 2 or 4. Usually, most circuses had a performance early and a performance late on weekends. They had 2 performances in the big top. But then they would go, they'd move on. They were only around for a day or 2, and then they were gone. They didn't hang out, put on a show, and have the heroes go adventure for a week, come back, leave. So I thought that's a little odd. I'm not sure how you're gonna kind of mesh that. That just seems a little strange. One section that I think is kind of cool, and I believe this is something new for second edition adventures, is the adventure toolbox, which is going to include new rules, new weapons and armor and magic items and spells. So we get a couple of new archetypes for the circus. We get staff acrobat and juggler. We get new feats. These are the circus weapons, which are kind of funny. I figured played a little more for laughs than seriousness. We got some new spells. I'm taking a guess. I don't know for sure, but I'll guess that we might actually see more of the circus archetypes in each of the chapters of this adventure path. Then we get some new monsters. Living graffiti. Luminous ooze. The mechanical carny is funny because the mechanical carny. So remember, I had mentioned that in the section where you're in town, they you have the like dance off with the other performers from the evil carnival. Well, if you succeed in defeating them, then whoever you like humiliated the most, like attacks like the players, kind of ambushes the players, and they have one of these mechanical carnies with them. So kind of funny. We get some new Zolgoth monsters as well. I always want to see troglodyte, but I guess troglodyte just isn't a politically correct word to use anymore. I don't know. So the madman says, "Circus show sheet." Say that 3 times quick. Yes, I know. So Jorge Rodriguez said, "I can't trust my players around succubi. They almost instantly commit atrocities upon contact." I don't know what kind of players you're playing with, then, Jorge. But he also points out the adventure looks pretty nice. Might get it. Then we get the 2 major villains in this. So we had a breakdown of them. The succubus herself really isn't a major villain, even though, at least not in this. Even though she really is the one who's corrupting the hermitage, as well as having the demons infusing the various animals and stuff like that. So all in all, we've got 92 pages. I like how on the inside cover as well as inside the back cover, we've got kind of like circus posters here for the different acts. All right, so there we have Pathfinder Extinction Curse. The show must go on. Let's zip back over to the other camera. I will give you my final thoughts and the review score. All right, so as I mentioned, this is the first Adventure Path product I've ever had an opportunity to sit down and read through, and there's a lot to really like about The Show Must Go On. I will point out, it didn't like completely blow me away. I will say that nothing like revolutionary is going on. I mean, the main premise that one group accuses another group of doing something that's ruining the land isn't exactly something fresh and new. I mean, that's a trope we've seen a lot in fantasy role-playing games. But the thing we haven't seen is the circus aspect. And as far as in the adventure itself, there isn't a lot of the circus life baked into the adventure outside of the first chapter, the murder under the big top. The rest of it kind of is more in line with, except, okay, so we've got the little, like, the performance duel that takes place in the town. But the rest of it is more standard adventuring fare for fantasy role-playing games. I'm not saying that's bad. I'm just saying I wasn't completely wowed. There's a couple other things. One, and this is, to me, I see it too much in modern role-playing games. And I think, no offense to Jason Tondro, but to me, it's almost like kind of like lazy design. So as an example, if you have something that requires a skill check with a difficulty number, what have you, and the players are going to receive a piece of information or something's going to happen if they succeed at that, yet if they fail, they're going to get it anyway from like an NPC or something else. To me, that's just kind of, then why have the skill check in the first place? Why not just kind of role play it a little bit? And that's how I like to do things. I don't like to make a lot of stuff about the dice, but that's because I kind of come from that old school mentality, because when I got into role-playing games, old school was new school. So school was just starting to be in session. So that's one of the things that I kind of leaves me scratching my head, because sometimes you'll get these calls for skill checks, yet if the players fail, they're still going to get the information or what have you, whatever they're doing a check for. regardless. To me, I find that a little bit silly. Other aspect that I kind of was like, is the fact that the circus angle is not baked in throughout the entire adventure. That I would like to have seen. And the what I mean by that is the adventure kicks off and it's essentially the players are performers or employees of this new circus. And boom, now the Barker, the kind of lead guy of the circus, he's not called the ringmaster, but I think he's like the Barker. He's found murdered. And to me, it's kind of like, there's no investment there. And we see this stuff a lot in role-playing games. I'm not picking on Pathfinder or this adventure in particular, but we get this, hey, you got brand new characters. Hey, somebody's been killed. Oh, wow. Now you're going to investigate. It's kind of like, what? It's like, you're assuming our characters are going to be good guys. We don't have to be good guys. What I would no doubt do running this is I would actually probably have a session that led up to the creation of this circus, of the Circus of Wayward Wonders. I would probably have a bit of a session, maybe even, for a few hours when you did the character creation, where you kind of role play the characters at that other circus, that other traveling circus that's evil, where they were mistreated, and kind of build up on that and give some of the other NPCs that they're going to encounter that are in this circus, who actually were part of the evil circus, give them a little screen time too, so that those NPCs have some sort of meaning to the characters. So if something happens when Myron's murdered, maybe Myron was the person who was able to get the player characters away from that evil circus. Now suddenly his death means something. But like I said, that's just me. That's how I kind of role play stuff. Once again, I have that history of Call of Cthulhu where I'll introduce NPCs into an adventure that I have plans for them, months down the line, something's going to happen. But I do that so that there's this baked in little bit of like shock when, oh no, Bob got killed. It's like, what? Bob's our favorite. As opposed to, who's Myron? What's going on with Myron? Outside of that, though, there's a lot to really, really dig about this. I like the adventure. I like the unique different monsters that are in here. I like the way this is laid out. I love how the stat blocks are right there, so easily usable at the table. Unlike a lot of role-playing game products, some Call of Cthulhu stuff, I'll admit, where like all your stat blocks and everything else are like at the end of the adventure. So you're flipping back and forth. You've got all that information right there. You've got the monsters from the bestiary. They'll tell you what page that information's on in the bestiary, so you can jump right to it. I like the toolkit, the toolbox at the end. I think that's really interesting as well. All in all, I think this is a fun adventure. I think a clever game master can really, really bring this out and have a blast with this with the players, especially if they don't take everything completely serious. If they just have a little bit of fun with certain things and it's not deathly serious, I think they will have a blast, especially play up that circus dance-off kind of thing in the middle of town as well. All in all, on a scale of 1 to 10, I give Pathfinder: The Show Must Go On an 8 out of 10. So I definitely think is worth picking up. I just had some quibbles with it. Nothing, crucial. All right, so I see Kabuki Kid had popped into chat. Good to see you, Kabuki Kid. Glad to have you here on a Monday night. So that's it for tonight's show. Once again, I apologize for getting started late. Always something. But hey, that's what happens when it's a live show. Anyway, I already went through what's on upcoming shows for this week, but I will point out once again, let me grab it, that tomorrow, this box is actually pretty heavy. I am going to share a how to play and review Sanctum from Check Games Edition. All right, so once again, let me point out, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. If you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that little bell, because it will not only notify you when this stream goes live, up to maybe episode 450, we don't know yet, still up in the air, but you still will get notified when I upload standalone videos, such as my upcoming coverage from C2E2, if we end up talking to somebody. And of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in gaming news, reviews, comics, movies, TV. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Those who hung out and watched live, thank you very much. Always appreciate folks taking some time out to kick back in chat. Chat is a little stranger when I'm doing reviews because kind of focus on the review and that. But I do definitely appreciate everybody popping in. And Palermo, thank you for being a new subscriber. For those of you out there who are watching after the fact, maybe you're even watching on Memorex, I definitely appreciate you taking time out to watch the show as well. So everyone, enjoy the rest of your Monday night. I will be back tomorrow. And until then, happy trails. Oh, you're still here. Well, if that's the case, by all means, subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel by clicking right here. And of course, if you want to catch up on past episodes of The Daily Dope, check out this playlist. And if you'd like to see what YouTube's recommending you take a peek at from the channel, just give a click right over here. Of course, I'm Jeff McAleer, and once again, thank you very much for watching.